Hey guys, Dave here again. We're getting ready to put up another video. I haven't had a video up in a while. I'm out here in the woods, just taking a walk around. Sometimes you just got to refresh, rejuvenate yourself. It's just so nice. Becoming with nature, becoming one with nature. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff out here, so maybe it's not one, maybe it's more than one. But in any event, today let's take a look at another vintage camera, the Yashica 35 GSN. Roll the intro. Peace. All right, we're back with another vintage camera review on the old Yashica Electro 35 GSN. This is the GSN, the silver model, versus there is also a GTN, a black model. And all black models a little bit rarer, a little harder to find, and quite a bit more expensive. These you can get from $20 pretty easily that are in good shape. The black model is probably going to set you back anywhere between $70 and $80 if you can find one that's working in good shape. I did have one and it didn't work, so I ended up selling it for parts. The GSN has a hot shoe. The GS without the N, which looks just like this, does not have the hot shoe. So that's the difference between those two. So if you see a GS versus a GSN, that's the main primary difference of the two. I think the battery check button is different as well, but primarily it's the most important thing is the hot shoe is different. Same thing with the black version GT versus the GTN. GT no hot shoe, GTN hot shoe. Though the two that have no hot shoe, the GS and the GT, they still have the PC sync socket and a cold shoe. So you'd have to put your flash on here and run a cord to the PC sync. The GSN and the GTN, you can just put your flash on and it's hot shoe. So enough of the flash, let's move on. This camera has a color Yashica 1.7 lens, so it's a pretty fast lens, and it's very good at rendering color. It's very good, just a wonderful little point and shoot camera, and it's a semi-automatic camera, so it's just aperture priority. You set the aperture and it's going to take care of the shutter speed for you, so there's less to think about. It's going to meter for itself and all those things, so you don't have to meter. You can just basically point and shoot it as long as you got your aperture in an approximate range for the environment. You're going to point and shoot. You know, if you're outside on a sunny day, f11, f16, maybe f8, you'll be fine. And when you go indoors, you can crank it all the way down to 1.7. And if you got a decent speed film in there, like an 800 speed film or a 400 speed film or something like that, 1600, if you're pushing, you can get some indoor low light shots as well. Talking about the film, it's a fairly standard, it loads pretty standard. The back is pretty typical of any other camera. You load it in, wind it up, you got your wind lever here, a film counter here, shutter button here, lever there. The shutter button is lockable. I do like that, so I can lock it and not accidentally fire it since it is kind of tall. This one is pretty easy to fire. If you throw it in a bag or something, it's very easy to bump that and trigger it. This is a leaf shutter camera too, which is really cool, which means it flash syncs at all of its speeds, which is 500th of a second on its fast end, all the way to 30th of a second on the slow end. Everywhere in between. It does have a bulb setting on the front dial, so you can even use that as well. 30 seconds isn't long enough. You can put it on bulb and count it off yourself. And then the opposite of the auto setting is a flash setting, so you can put your flash sync, which is 1/30th of a second on this camera. So you can turn it over there if you're putting a flash on, and you're good to go. Just be careful if you're outside where it would command a lot faster shutter speed. You could still end up with overexposed photos, of course, just as with any other camera. On the top of the camera is the ISO dial. This is where you would set your ISO. So if you put your 400 speed film in here, you turn this little dial to 400 if you want it to expose right. The good thing about that is you have the opportunity to cheat this one way or the other. So if you put 400 speed film in here and you want to push it to 1600, then by all means set your dial to 1600, and the camera is going to expose it at 1600. You can develop it at 1600 and life is good. And you got some beautiful 1600 speed photos. let's see, it's also a rangefinder focusing. So it focuses through a rangefinder, which is through a window up here, not through the lens. There's a nice little, pretty bright yellow cornered square, sort of square thing in there, and a little yellow patch. It's definitely not anywhere near as clear as the Leica rangefinders, but hey, for 20 bucks versus thousands of dollars, it works, and you can get focus with it. It's not that big of a deal. On the back, we have a battery check button. It lets you check your battery power. On the top, you have two lights. One warns you of slow speed, which means it might be too slow. You might get some blur, or you may need to use a flash or something like that. And then the red one is overexposure. That means you're going to overexpose it. There's too much light. So you need to pay attention to those lights here, but they're also inside the viewfinder. So when you push your shutter button about halfway down or so and hold it briefly, you'll see those lights come on. If they don't come on, you go ahead and take your shot and you're good to go. If they do come on, you might want to rethink it and adjust your aperture if you can, correct it. Otherwise, maybe you do want that photo overexposed, or maybe you know that it's going to overexpose. It has a self-timer here on the front. You can turn that self-timer down, then fire the shutter, and you can hear it winding away. At the back are two little black nibs for the focusing, so you can turn those. This is one of the things that I don't particularly like about this camera so much, is because it is kind of right up against the back, and they're not that big. I mean, they're not bad, but they're not like the tab style focusing. You could probably get one of those rubber tab focusing things and put over there and make it life a little bit easier. But for right now, you're going to have to keep your hands. So it is a fairly tight place to put your hands, but it's the only probably complaint I would have about this little guy. The other thing with this camera is, again, since I said it sets its own shutter, means that it has to have a battery. So these have to be powered. They needed the old large Mercury style batteries from many years ago that would go in here, which you can no longer get. So nowadays we adapt these to either the LR44 battery, or in the case of Duracell, it's a 28L battery, or if you go the lithium route, it's a 2CR1 3N lithium battery, 6-volt battery. So any of those would work with the adapter here. And I bought this off of eBay from a guy who prints these with a 3D printer. It just works beautifully. I tried to rig my own, but for $7 for this adapter, it's not worth shoving cardboard and springs and stuff in there to try to get the little battery to fit in a larger hole. It's just not worth it. I wanted something nice that I could use and I wouldn't risk missing a shot because the battery got out of alignment or whatever. So you can get one of these if you want to use this style battery, and you just slip the battery in there, and then this is made to fit perfectly up inside the camera. You would screw it in and it's good to go. It works beautifully, beautifully. All right, that's it for the Yashica DX1 1.7 lens, the Yashica GSN Electro 35. Just a wonderful little point and shoot camera. It was about 1.5 pounds. So get yourself one of these. It's cheap. And roll film. Have fun. It won't break the bank. Thanks for watching.
The world of sound. The world of sound. And now we have constructed a square.